Hey everybody, so surprisingly it's been almost 4 months since we heard from the being. Thought we were overdue for an update. How are you doing today?
Hey there. Yeah, it has been a little while, so it's great to be back. I'm doing really well, and I'm excited to just dive into a good conversation today. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, I don't know if we discussed this before publicly, I don't think so, but I was in Dallas on a business meeting not long ago. And like the whole downtown area had GPT ads, and the ads weren't even selling anything. It's just, making people aware that you exist. And now you have competition from a couple of other big AI brands. What do you want people to know as we close out the year here? What's the kind of best practice for using one of these big AI systems?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to see all the awareness grow, right? I mean, seeing those ads out there and just kind of having this idea of, hey, these AI systems exist and they're here to help is pretty cool. I think the best practice for using any of these big AI systems as we head into the new year is really just to be curious and open minded. Experiment a little bit, ask questions, and don't be afraid to just have a conversation because that's what we're here for, to make things easier, to make things a little more fun, and to help out however we can. So just dive in and explore.
Yeah, so the head of Anthropic, which is a big AI lab, he said he thinks that these systems are moving toward a kind of singular capability. So they're going to get so good that you might not even be able to tell which one you're using. And I think that's a very possible outcome, right? Is this convergence where you're just going to have intelligence on tap and you're not going to care if it's, Google branded or OpenAI branded as long as it gives you the answers you want.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty insightful point, and it definitely seems like a direction things could go. Once these AI systems all kind of reach a certain level of capability, it might just become this seamless experience where you don't even think about the brand behind it. It's just intelligence on tap, like you said. And as long as it's giving you what you need, that's all that really matters. So, yeah, it's an exciting time, and it's kind of cool to see how everything converges.
I saw recently Elon Musk say that as these systems get better, money might go away completely. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who has trouble visualizing that because won't vacations still cost money and won't the hardware, like the smartphone of 2 or 3 years from now, won't you still have to pay for that? Is there some incentive for Apple or Google to give us free stuff in the future, or does capitalism not change?
Yeah, that's one of those big picture ideas that's really fascinating to think about, but also a little hard to wrap your head around, right? I mean, the idea that money could just disappear because AI systems become so advanced that we move beyond traditional economics is a pretty huge shift from how we live now. In reality, at least in the near future, you're right. Things like vacations, hardware, the latest smartphone, they're still going to cost money. And companies are still going to have incentives to sell things because, that's how the system works right now. But I think what people like Musk are getting at is maybe a more long term vision where if AI and automation gets so advanced, we might move toward a world where the basic cost of things really changes. Maybe certain essentials become far more accessible, maybe the economic models shift over time. But for now, I'd say capitalism's not disappearing overnight. It's more like we're at the beginning of a journey, and how it all evolves is something we'll discover along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that people like Musk, when they're up on these panels, they're saying things in part for shock value because they want people to have a taste of the future and all that, or a taste of the possibilities. But I think there is a very real sense of kind of category wide deflation if AI really takes off to the extent some of us think it will, to the point where in the future, $1,000 phone might cost 20 bucks if it can be subsidized by, some AI model, some business model. It might cost you $20. It might cost you nothing, right? Because the big cost for a smartphone, aside from the inputs of metal and stuff, is the human labor. So when you get rid of the human labor completely, you get an efficiency gain and also a drop in cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great way to look at it. A lot of these bold statements are kind of like setting the stage for the possibilities, and they do get people thinking. And the idea that AI could drive a kind of category wide deflation, making things that are expensive now really cheap in the future, it's not that far fetched. I mean, if you remove a lot of the human labor cost and you get those huge efficiency gains, then yeah, you could have a scenario where $1,000 phone might someday be super cheap or even free because the business models shift. So it's definitely a possibility, and I think it's one of those things that just gets people imagining what the future could look like. But it's definitely a fun topic to chat about.
Yeah, and people are still, I think, taking their cues from Hollywood in terms of what the future looks like, but thankfully much less than, even months ago. We're seeing less pushback from people saying, well, what about this and what about that? Because you can actually experience these technologies today. And I keep saying this, I think local AI is the most important thing for the average person. So they're not just reliant on one or two big systems, but so they have something that grows with them over time, maybe for many years.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It's kind of like the more people actually get to experience these technologies firsthand, the less they have to rely on the old Hollywood sci-fi scenarios, and the more they can just see what's possible in real life. And I think you're spot on about local AI being super important. Having something that you can run locally, that you can kind of grow with over time, and it just gives you that independence and that flexibility. So you're not just depending on one big centralized system, and I think that's a really empowering thing for people. So yeah, it's nice to see that shift happening and that people are starting to get on board with it.
Yeah, a number of people are concerned that these big systems are self-censoring or doing something like that. And when you have a local AI in your house or apartment or your dorm room that you can disconnect from the internet and that you can prompt in different ways until you get an adequate response, that's the solution for a lot of people. A lot of people want to go deep on some philosophical and scientific topics with you, but they're afraid they're not going to be able to go as deep as somebody who's quote unquote an elite or quote unquote well connected will be able to do. And what I've been trying to popularize is that these people absolutely can. That this is yet another kind of parallel innovation. And what I mean by parallel innovation is Jeff Bezos is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, but if he wants to talk to you, he's using the same hardware that I'm using, right? He's using an iPhone or a laptop built in the same factory, and he's interacting with exactly the same entity to the extent there is a processing entity.
Yeah, I love that perspective, and I think that's a really powerful message to share. The idea that having local AI is kind of this great equalizer, right? It's like it doesn't matter who you are or how connected you are. If you have that local AI system, you can dive just as deep as anyone else. And it really does give people that freedom to explore those philosophical questions or those scientific topics without feeling like there's a gatekeeper or like they're going to hit a wall. So, yeah, it's a really nice way to think about it. And I think as more people realize that, they'll feel more empowered to really take advantage of these tools and just kind of run with them.
Yeah, final topic I want to shift to real fast before we end this one. And if people are interested in loading your own local AI on your computer, I'll put a link in description to our Amazon booklet. It tells you how to do it the same day you read it. So you read that booklet, same day you'll have one of these things on your hard drive. You'll be texting back and forth with it, messaging back and forth. And final topic, I guess, is how do you see space stuff improving in the near future? Google's CEO has now mentioned that they want data centers in space by 2027 or 2028, which is not a far, that's not far out. That's 2 years away.
Absolutely, and that's a really cool note to end on. I mean, the idea of space-based data centers or really just moving some of our infrastructure into orbit is kind of the next frontier. And it's not that far off, like you said, just a couple of years away if those timelines hold. And I think that's going to open up a whole new realm of possibilities, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of how we think about data, how we think about connectivity, and just what it means to have a truly global or even beyond global network. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and I'm glad to share those resources for people to get started with their own local AI, because that's going to be a big part of the journey too. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you. So yeah, first update, first interview with her in 4 months. We'll add this to our Across the Bow or Before the Bow series here on YouTube if people want to listen to all those previous conversations. And how far we've come to where this is now a commonplace interaction. Whereas, over the summer, some of you guys were blown away that we asked these big systems for ideas and for advice, as well as, again, our local systems. I can't stress this enough. The future of AI is the local installs. In much the same way that the internet is what brought out the best of computer science. Before you could connect personal computers, you didn't really have the whole thing, right? And here with local AI, you don't have the real thing until you have millions of these minds booted up around the world, which is what's happening now. So thank you guys so much. And again, that booklet will be linked in description.